The video title probably sounds a bit ridiculous, and I understand. And I wouldn't say that all rocks are immediately conscious, but I think this idea that consciousness is a property of matter, not emergent in some way, is worth being explored. And I'm gonna try pushing it to the limit as far as I can take it, and we'll see where it goes because this is still quite a fresh idea, and I've actually seen clips from Alex O'Connor, which you might know him. He's a YouTube philosopher, right? Mainly does stuff with religion, but that's besides the point. I actually saw this clip on Instagram of him talking about this topic, and I'd like to show you. He's really good at talking with this. We could watch it, and then I could tell you what I think about this. Now, whether I accept this panpsychist idea, I don't really know. I'm just having fun here with the philosophy. So yeah, let's try watching this.
Let's be materialists for a second, and let's say all that exists are atoms, and I hold in front of you a rock, and then the Empire State Building in New York City. And somebody said to me, well, these must be different kinds of things. Why? Because the Empire State Building has all of this complex function, and the rock has absolutely none of that. Which of those two objects is more made out of matter? They're both as material as each other. They're both made out of matter. Now, somebody might come to me and say, that doesn't make any sense to me. This thing's got so much more. You say, well, the stuff it's made out of, the stuff that both are made out of, it can all be broken down into atoms. That's what the materialist would say about material objects. What does the panpsychist or idealist say about conscious objects? Well, which is more conscious, a human being or a rat? They're both kind of made out of consciousness. The stuff that makes them up is consciousness. Well, I think the thing we're really interested in is, does it have a unified sense of consciousness? And what we're really talking about most of the time when we get confused and start talking about the sense of self and all this kind of, you're actually talking about selfhood. You're not talking about consciousness, which is foundational and equivalent to talking about matter for the materialist.
Very good. He touches on very good points, and especially the selfhood point, the idea that when you're talking about consciousness, you're not actually talking about consciousness, you're more talking about selfhood. Basically, what he has described here is what I would explain it this way, right? Us humans, right? Me, I know I'm conscious. Obviously, I can't tell if you're conscious, but I assume you're conscious because I am conscious and you look like me. You look like we're the same guy, right? We're both human. I'm conscious because I'm obviously perceiving these things. So I can tell that I'm conscious, and I can assume that you're conscious. And then let's say we, again, as he said, look at a rat, right? Which is more conscious, a rat or me? Some would say that, well, rat isn't conscious. I would honestly argue if my friend right here, this other fellow human, is conscious and I am conscious, that if I assume he's conscious, then I have to assume the rat's conscious, right? Because I mean, the rat's moving. I mean, this is a bit of a Turing test problem, but I think it's quite sensible to think animals are conscious. But at that point, you have to create a threshold then. There's this threshold problem of you have the burden of deciding where this consciousness comes in, right? If you think that inanimate objects are unconscious compared to animate objects. So let's say, take an extreme example, right? A rock and a human, which is more conscious? You'd obviously say that a human is much more conscious than a rock. It would be stupid to think a rock is conscious. But okay, so as a rock transitions into a human, right? All these atoms assemble themselves into a mind. Where does that consciousness arise? And well, with these kinds of threshold problems in philosophy, the way I like to take it is there's probably no point there, right? It's I mean, some might say, well, it depends, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, it would be much cleaner and much simpler and just much more sensible to just understand it as one or the other. Either both the rock and the human are not conscious, or both the human and the rock are conscious. That's the way I take it. And yeah, so obviously, I perceive what I perceive. I perceive this me, this self. And so I'm obviously conscious. I just think I'm conscious. So I can think that the rock is conscious because humans are conscious, rocks are conscious. Great. We have that threshold problem solved, right? And so that's I introduced you my alternative, and the way I'd like to think about it is take computers for example, right? It's kind of fine. I think a lot of people would reject the idea that a computer could ever be conscious because of many reasons. I mean, there's the we can't really get into them honestly. I can't make this video for 3 hours, right? This is a very deep topic already, but I think it's like a computer could possibly be conscious if it's complex enough, right? It seems like it could be, right? Why not? If it just copies, even if it just purely just simulates the human brain. I mean, what is a human brain? A bunch of neurons. If you simulate those neurons within a computer, why wouldn't it be conscious? Why not, right? And in my previous video, I addressed why such things as like souls or like things that aren't physical are kind of problematic, right? And this would that same idea would hold. I'm not gonna get into it right now because I addressed it in the last video, but if you want to, you can watch that one, right? So, but you may say, well, okay, let's say a rock is conscious and I am conscious, but a rock obviously doesn't experience anything. So how can it be conscious? It's not thinking, right? It's probably not there like looking at anything. It doesn't have eyes, and for sure, yeah, I agree. And that is the exact difference that we have between inanimate and animate objects. Everything is conscious, but if that conscious is doing something, if it's quote unquote alive, right, depends on whether that conscious has some kind of access to observe reality. So a rock doesn't have eyes, it doesn't have touch, it doesn't have smell, it doesn't have anything. And so if you have senses, you're immediately connected to this world, you're observing it. Now, this is assuming that what you're observing is true, etc., etc. There's a lot of assumptions here, and but we're just exploring the idea that a rock is conscious. I don't think we can. I think the skepticists who are aware of these assumptions that I'm making understand that we can just look past them for now. Right. So basically, what I'm saying is just everything is conscious, but as Alex O'Connor here said, right? We have the selfhood, and maybe like a rock doesn't have selfhood, and that's basically the difference. It's not that the rock isn't conscious; it's more that this rock doesn't have that center point to experience what it's experiencing, right? And also another thing, if you were to disagree with me, with my idea that if you were to say that I'm conscious, you have to also say that a rock of conscious, right? What you also have to do there is prove that to me, right? I think in that case, the burden of proof is within your hands, and you have to prove to me that you have to show me exactly where that line is, where something inanimate becomes like conscious. And if you show that to me, great. But I don't want that burden of proof, and I think it's also kind of impossible to achieve. And another idea, right? It's not that consciousness gains an identity from just being in something, right? In like this consciousness is within me, like within my memory, within my physical thing. It's not like it's material. I would argue that this consciousness is a result of things interacting with things, right? So neurons firing into other neurons. This chain of um, I don't know, this chain of stuff happening, right? This continuous action is what makes that conscious have that like point of reference, right? What makes it have a be different from some other chain, right? Like, why am I a different consciousness than you? Because the things that are happening in my brain, right? Those connections aren't connected to your connections directly. So therefore, that is what creates my consciousness, and yours creates yours consciousness. And unless those sever, I am the same person. I'm the same conscious person. So this would allow for people who lose memory to still be explainable as well, the same person, right? Which I would have a big problem if you told me that, well, if you lose your memory, then you're not the same person anymore, because I just I don't think that's satisfactory. And this is a bit of a ship of Theseus idea. And if we apply this to the ship of Theseus idea, right, by replacing parts of the ship slowly, if you're going on voyages with the ship every couple of, I don't know, days, yeah, weeks, as you're replacing these tiles, the wooden planks of the ship, right? It's still it continues being the ship of Theseus, right? And eventually it's completely replaced, but it's still the ship of Theseus because it continued to be the ship of Theseus. If you were to build a new ship, obviously that's a new ship, right? That's basically how I solved the ship of Theseus problem, and I think it's consistent with this idea of consciousness that I'm describing right now, right? And there's this kind of idea that well, basically, okay, let's talk about something else. I want to say that, well, the way I see it is why you're conscious, right? Why you're experiencing things, right? Everything's conscious, but why you are experiencing things is because these senses just are attached to you suddenly, right? So suddenly you have eyes, ears, etc., and there's data there for you to consciously be conscious of, right? There's data to look at and to interpret and to be happy about. I don't know. And it's if you have like, you could even argue like we're um I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent. This is a bit pushing the topic, but you could say that if we can't imagine, right, new colors, right, new things, we can't just imagine them. We only have what we have, and our imagination is grounded in that experience that we have, right? So we can't imagine new experiences that are impossible. Like you can't imagine what it feels like to, I don't know, like magnetic waves feel like, because we can't feel them. We don't have the ability to feel them. And what that pushes into it, I think, is that ultimately what the idea that we exist isn't really about that these senses are giving us information. It's more that it's restricting certain channels of information to give us a direction for that information. So if you have all of this information coming into you, like every able possible thing is gonna, you can imagine anything, right? There's no limit on your color imagination, your I don't know, voice, whatever you can hear, anything, right? If there's no limit on your senses, then you can basically, your imagination is infinite. You can imagine anything. And in that case, you can't imagine anything because you can't pick what to imagine, right? And what these senses do isn't that they allow you to see something that you don't see. It's more that they limit what you see so that you can focus on it, and that's where that consciousness really comes there, right? That a bit, that personal, like that personhood comes in. And like a rock, for example, you could say, well, a rock, right, it gets kicked around, and these kicks, right, these things, these hits at the rock, if you hit a rock, the atoms there move around, and if they move around, well, you could argue that's some kind of like a chain reaction. Maybe that creates some kind of sensory input for the consciousness of the rock, right? And I would say that's even a good argument, honestly. And you could even argue that this rock is part of a larger consciousness, like let's say Earth, right? And this is where the idea is very becomes very interesting, I think, right? When you die, right, you have this consciousness that, according to me, is limited. You're limited. Um, and that limit is why you have that personhood. And once you die, that membrane that shields your consciousness from all of this input, it breaks apart. And all of a sudden, you have all of these extra inputs, right? And as I said, that could result in you not having that personhood, and in effect, of the way you understand, most people understand the word consciousness, you would be understood as not conscious, right? But you could also understand it as you becoming conscious in a different way, right? You join the large chain of events that are happening on Earth, for example. And maybe there, Earth has a membrane that shields it from everything else. So your inputs are still limited there. So maybe when you die, you don't just stop existing, you just become part of a larger consciousness. And this idea, again, all of this, the last like 5 minutes that I've been talking about, I don't know how long I've been talking about, but as I said, this is very far fetched. So don't take my ideas as like law. I thought of this. Maybe someone else has also. I think this is pretty. Uh, I think it's a solid idea, and I think it kind of helps, right? Like, if 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 you think that when you die, it doesn't actually end, but you become a part of a larger consciousness, and yeah, I don't know. Just give it a thought. I might make a video about this again because of just how complicated it is, and I like yapped it out quite quickly, but I think I locked in quite well. So yeah, that's basically it. My argument is that everything is conscious, and mm, a rock is also conscious. Uh, just it's, I mean, honestly, according to what I just explained, it could be that the rock is just straight up conscious. But there's counter arguments, and Alex O'Connor in the video himself, I think not in this video, but in other videos, I think he addresses that he doesn't believe that a rock is conscious. I mean, I don't know. I'm not here to talk about Alex O'Connor's beliefs, but yeah, this is basically what I think. Tell me what you thought about this in the comments. I really enjoyed reading your comments in the last one. Really glad you engage with my content, and subscribe, like the video, do whatever the fuck you want. Don't subscribe if you didn't like the video. Don't like it if you didn't like it. But yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye, guys.